The arrow that changed everything. The jungle was alive. Strange birds flew across the dark red sky and glowing plants lit up the path below. But James didn't care. He was too busy looking at his map. The human explorer had come alone to this planet hoping to study ancient alien ruins. He didn't know he had just walked into forbidden ground. Without warning, a loud voice echoed from above. "You trespass!" it shouted. James looked up. On a high rock stood a tall alien girl. Young, beautiful, but fierce. Her skin was a soft lavender blue, her long white hair tied behind her head like a warrior. Her armor shimmered with tribal patterns, and in her hand she held a glowing arrow, pulled back in a curved bone bow. Before James could speak, she released the arrow. It flew through the air, straight at his heart. But James moved on instinct. His hand shot up and he caught the arrow mid-air. Everything went silent. The girl's eyes widened in shock. Her mouth opened slightly, and her hands dropped to her sides. The birds stopped singing. Even the jungle seemed to freeze. Then, from behind the trees, dozens of aliens stepped out. Her people. Tall, proud warriors, all watching with wide eyes. One of the elders stepped forward and said in a deep voice, "The arrow was caught. The bond is sealed." James looked confused. "Wait, what bond?" The warrior girl stepped down from the rock slowly, her eyes locked on his. She looked more angry than scared. "You don't know what you've done," she said, her voice shaking with fury. "I didn't mean to—" James tried to explain, but she interrupted. "Only one may catch the sacred arrow. It is used only in battle or in choosing a mate." James blinked. "What?" The elder spoke again. "He who catches the arrow becomes the chosen one. By our ancient law, you must now be wed." James almost dropped the arrow. "Married. To her." The girl turned away sharply. "Don't flatter yourself, human. This is not my wish. It is tradition." She walked past him, brushing his shoulder with hers. "I will find a way out of this," she whispered coldly. "You will not chain me with your luck." The crowd followed her. Only the elder stayed behind for a moment. "You should prepare," the elder said to James. "The ceremony begins at moonfall." James stared at the arrow still in his hand. It was warm, alive even. Something told him this was no joke. He had come to study a lost culture. Now he was part of one. Meanwhile, Valara, the alien warrior, paced in her tent. Her hands trembled with anger. How could this happen? She had trained all her life, fought and won countless trials. She was supposed to choose her own mate someday through ritual combat. She had used the sacred arrow to scare off a trespasser, not to give away her life. And now, by the law of her people, she was bound to him, a human. "Unacceptable," she growled. But deep inside, something else stirred. A question. How did he catch it? The sacred arrow was faster than wind, blessed by her ancestors. No alien, not even her strongest warriors, could ever stop it once fired. But this human, this stranger, caught it like a leaf in the air. Was he lucky, trained, or something more? She shook her head. "It doesn't matter. I'll break the bond myself." Outside the tent, the tribe began preparing the ceremonial fire. Drums echoed through the forest. Food was placed before statues of the old gods. The people were excited. A bonding was rare. A bonding with an outsider. Unheard of. James sat alone near a stone fountain, still holding the arrow. He had no idea what to do next. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hero. He was just a man with good reflexes and bad timing. He looked up at the alien sky and whispered to himself, "What the hell did I get myself into?" And from a nearby tree, Valara watched him silently. Her eyes narrowed. "If the law won't release me," she said under her breath, "then I will make him fail, and when he does, this so-called bond will break." But she didn't know. James wasn't planning to quit. He was planning to survive, and maybe, just maybe, prove he was worthy. A warrior's shame. The drums of celebration echoed through the jungle. But inside her stone tent, Valara sat alone, staring at her own reflection in the polished metal wall. Her warrior paint had faded. Her silver armor was scratched. And for the first time in her life, she felt something she never expected to feel. Shame. Not because of the human, but because she had failed. Failed to control her own fate. She had trained from childhood to become the strongest warrior of her tribe. She had beaten males twice her size. She had hunted beasts in the void forest. She had even fought in the Sky Wars. And now, because of one mistake, she was being forced to marry a human? No. It couldn't end like this. Outside, the tribe celebrated. Alien children danced in a circle around the fire. Warriors painted James's hands with glowing ink. He sat awkwardly as they placed a feathered crown on his head. He didn't understand the language fully, but the elder smiled warmly at him. "Tonight you become one of us," the elder said. James gave a weak smile. "That's great, but is the bride okay with this?" The elder chuckled. "She will accept. It is the way." James looked around. Where is she anyway? Back in her tent, Valara took out a small knife. Its blade was sharp and curved, meant for one purpose only, cutting the bonding thread. Once a sacred bond was broken, the offender would be exiled. But she didn't care. She would rather be alone in the wild than be chained to a man she didn't choose. Still, she hesitated. She remembered the moment. The arrow, flying fast and true. The way he caught it, without fear. Without even knowing what it meant. That wasn't normal. No one had ever done that. Could he really be just a lucky fool? Or was something else guiding him? She hated that question, but it wouldn't leave her mind. Suddenly, the tent flap opened. One of the young warrior girls, her cousin, entered. "Valara, the people await you. The ceremony begins soon." Valara stood stiffly. "Let them wait." The girl looked down, nervous. "There are whispers. They say the ancestors chose him. That he is the flame's answer." Valara's eyes narrowed. "That's legend. Don't speak it." "But he caught the arrow," the girl said. "And not just any arrow. Your arrow." Valara turned away. "Then I'll test him. If he fails even one trial, the bond breaks, and I walk free." Later that night, the fire roared high. James stood beside the tribal elder, his hands glowing with paint, his heart pounding in his chest. Across from him, Valara walked into the circle wearing her war armor instead of the traditional bonding dress. The crowd went silent. Even James noticed the tension in her steps. Then, Valara spoke in a strong voice. "According to our laws, the bond is not final until the trials of worth are passed. He must complete 5 trials to prove he is worthy to stand beside me." The elder blinked. "That law has not been used in centuries." "It still stands," Valara interrupted. She turned to James. Her eyes were cold. "If you pass, I will accept the bond. But if you fail, you leave. And the bond dies with you." James looked confused. "What kind of trials?" Valara stepped closer, her voice low. "The kind where one mistake means death." He swallowed. "Well, sounds fair?" The elder looked at Valara, concerned. "Are you certain?" Valara didn't blink. "He will fail, and then I will be free." The crowd began to whisper. Some were excited, others were afraid, a few looked disappointed. But James didn't run. He didn't argue. He only asked one question. "When do we start?" Valara stared at him, unsure for the first time. His eyes had no fear. "Dawn," she said at last. "We start at dawn." That night James sat alone under the stars, near the edge of the camp. The jungle made strange noises. Insects glowed in the dark. The captured arrow lay beside him. He picked it up and whispered, "Catch an arrow, win a wedding. What a joke." But deep inside, Something told him this wasn't just a mistake. This was meant to happen. Somewhere nearby, Valara watched him from the shadows, her expression unreadable. She didn't understand him, and that made him dangerous. "Let's see what you're really made of, human," she whispered, because tomorrow she would send him into the first trial, and she expected him to fail. The first trial. Fire wolves. The jungle was silent before dawn. A red mist curled through the trees as the alien moon sank low. The tribe stood in a wide circle, faces lit by torchlight. They had gathered to watch the humans' first trial. James stood shirtless, his chest marked with glowing symbols painted by the elder. He held a small bag of supplies. His eyes searched the crowd until they landed on Valara, standing at the edge with arms crossed, her face like stone. She didn't look like someone cheering for him. She looked like someone waiting for him to die. The elder raised a staff. "The first trial is fireborn. He must enter the den of the ember wolves. He must return before the sun fully rises, or be lost forever." Gasps echoed from the crowd. A few warriors murmured prayers. Valara stepped forward. "These beasts do not respect strength. They only respect spirit. If he runs, they chase. If he fights, they burn. If he kneels, they eat." She looked James straight in the eye. "Good. Legacy husband." The den was deep in the jungle, a cave with walls that glowed orange like living lava. The heat was intense. The air shimmered. James stepped inside alone. The moment he crossed the line, a gust of hot wind pushed back his hair. He walked slowly, careful not to make noise. Then, he saw them. 4 large creatures moved like shadows through the flame-lit cave. Their fur was glowing red, like fire beneath their skin. Their eyes were pure white. Their tails sparked when they swished. The Ember Wolves. James crouched behind a rock, heart pounding. "Okay, don't run, don't fight, don't kneel, great." One of the wolves looked toward him, ears twitching. It growled low, like thunder rolling across stone. James remembered Valara's words. They respect spirit. He took a deep breath, and then he did something no one expected. He sat down, right in the middle of the cave, cross-legged, back straight. The wolves growled louder. One approached, teeth bared. It stopped just inches from his face, fire leaking from its mouth. James didn't flinch. He looked into the creature's glowing eyes and whispered, "I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to survive." The lead wolf growled once more, then turned away. The other wolves followed. From the jungle edge, Valara watched the scene through a viewing crystal. Her mouth slowly opened in disbelief. No one sits in front of them. They should have attacked. But they didn't. Instead, something stranger happened. James stood up carefully and noticed one of the wolves limping in the back. It had a deep wound on its side, glowing with green poison. James slowly took a small vial from his bag. A salve, made from local herbs he studied before the mission. He inched closer. The injured wolf growled weakly, but didn't strike. James kneeled down and applied the salve gently. "Easy, buddy," he whispered. "You're not so scary up close." The wolf licked his hand once. Outside, the tribe gasped. The trial wasn't just passed, it was conquered. Valara clenched her fists. She had hoped to see him run in fear, or scream in pain, or beg to be released from the bond. Instead, he was healing her world's most feared beast, like it was nothing. As the first light of morning touched the treetops, James walked out of the cave. The healed Ember Wolf followed him. The crowd erupted into shouts and cheers. Even the elder looked stunned. Valara stared at James with cold eyes. He walked up to her, sweaty, tired, but smiling. "Well," he said, "trial 1's done. What's next?" Valara didn't answer right away. Then she said quietly, "You didn't win because of strength. You won because you listened." James shrugged. "That's how I've survived most things in life." Valara turned away sharply, hiding something in her eyes. "Was it respect? Admiration or fear? She didn't know yet. But she knew one thing. James was no ordinary human, and the next trial would need to be far deadlier. From the shadows of the jungle, an old tribal seer whispered to herself, "He walks with the flame." The old stories may be true. The tale of a human bonded to a royal warrior wasn't just strange anymore. It was starting to feel destined. The second trial. The mirror. Mist. The morning after the firewolf trial, the jungle felt colder. Thick silver fog rolled in from the hills covering everything. The trees vanished in the mist. Even voices sounded far away. The tribe stood in silence, forming a circle again. But this time, there were no drums. No cheers. Only quiet tension. This was the trial that broke the strongest minds. The elder stood beside James and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Today, your body means nothing. Only your spirit will matter." James looked confused. "So, no fighting?" Valara stepped forward. Her expression was unreadable. "This trial is called the Mirror Mist," she said calmly. "Inside the fog, you will face yourself. Every fear, every lie you hide, the mists will read your heart." She walked slowly around him. Some scream until they go mad. Some beg to be pulled out. Some never return. She looked him in the eye. "Let's see what you hide, human." James stepped into the mist alone. At first, nothing happened. Just silence. The air was thick. Each breath felt like breathing through a wet cloth. The world outside vanished behind him. He walked slowly, hands out, feeling for anything. Then, he heard a voice. It was his own. "You don't belong here." James turned. No one. Then, shapes formed in the mist. His home. Earth. His little sister running into his arms. His mother smiling. His father sitting in a chair with a cup of tea. They were all smiling at him. He smiled back. But then the smiles twisted. Their eyes turned black. Their faces melted into shadows. "You left us. You forgot who you are. You'll die alone out here." James stumbled back, breathing fast. "No, this isn't real." He turned, and now he stood in a different scene, a battlefield. His hands were bloody. His voice screamed orders. Bodies around him, human and alien. He looked down and saw a weapon in his hand. "What is this?" he whispered. "You caused this," the mist said in his voice. "You try to save people, but you fail them all." Back outside, Valara watched the fog. "He's been in too long," one of the warriors said. "Should we pull him out?" another asked. Valara didn't answer. She remembered her own mirror mist trial, how it showed her the moment she lost her brother. The moment she ran instead of fighting, how it screamed that she wasn't strong enough to lead. She had almost broken, would he? Inside the fog, James fell to his knees. His mother's voice echoed again. "You could have stayed with us. Why did you go?" James covered his ears. "Stop." Then, slowly, he stood. His voice was soft but firm. "Because I had to. Because someone out there needed me. Because maybe there's more than just Earth." The voices laughed. "You don't belong anywhere." James opened his eyes, and this time he saw himself, a perfect copy standing in the mist, staring back. The copy spoke. "You're weak. You're scared. You're pretending to be brave." James stared at his double for a long time, then he said, "I am scared, but that doesn't make me weak. It means I'm human." He stepped forward and walked through the double. The mist began to swirl and lift. He didn't scream. He didn't run. He kept walking until he stepped out the other side. The tribe gasped. Valara blinked in shock. He made it. The elder nodded slowly. And the mist did not follow him. James dropped to his knees, breathing hard. His clothes were soaked in sweat. Valara walked toward him, kneeling beside him. You saw things, didn't you? She asked. James looked up at her, tired but calm. Yeah. Things I hate, things I miss, things I try to hide. She looked at him quietly, then whispered, You lasted longer than me. James smiled weakly. Maybe I'm too stubborn to quit. Valara looked away. Something had changed in her eyes. Not hatred, not anger, something softer. That night she sat alone by the fire, staring into the flames. The human wasn't what she expected. He wasn't just surviving the trials, he was understanding them, facing them with heart, not just strength. And worst of all, she no longer wanted him to fail. The third trial, the sky, leaped by morning. The sky had changed. Clouds moved fast, shaped like spirals. The wind whispered through the trees like it was carrying secrets. Today's trial was not about beasts or fear. Today, the trial was about trust. James stood at the edge of a high cliff, staring at a strange sight, floating stones hovering in the sky like steps going upward into the clouds. They moved slowly, some spinning, some shaking like they could fall at any moment. Valara stood beside him in full armor, her arms crossed. This is the sky leap, she said. James raised an eyebrow. Let me guess? Jump across them or die? She gave a sharp nod. The path leads to the shining peak. That's where you'll find the crest stone. Touch it and the trial ends. Fall, and the wind will carry what's left of you. James took a deep breath, trying to hide the nervous flutter in his chest. Heights weren't his favorite thing. And if I get stuck halfway? He asked. Valara smirked. Then you'll dangle like a dead fish, entertaining for us. James smiled a little. Glad I could help your day. The tribe gathered below, watching from a safe distance. The floating path was sacred. Only those taking the trial could set foot on the stones. James climbed the first, rocked carefully. It was firm but shifted slightly under his weight. Then he leaped to the next, and the next. At first, it wasn't so hard. But as he went higher, the wind grew stronger. One stone spun faster, and when he jumped, he slipped. His hand grabbed the edge just in time. Come on, he growled, pulling himself up. Valara watched from the ground, her heart thudding harder than she expected. Why am I worried for him? Halfway up, James paused. He looked back and realized he couldn't see the ground anymore. Just missed. Then he looked forward. A gap between two stones was far too wide, he couldn't jump it. There was only one choice left. Call for help. James sighed, pulled a small whistle from his bag, and blew it once. Valara's ears twitched. She stepped forward. He used the signal. One of the warriors asked, Should we bring him down? But Valara shook her head. No, she said. I'll go to him. She leaped onto the stones like a dancer, her movements light and sure. She had taken this trial once before, as a child, during her warrior ceremony. Back then she had climbed alone, made it to the top in silence, and returned stronger. But today, something was different. She wasn't climbing for honor. She was climbing for him. When she reached James, he was sitting on the edge of a stone looking frustrated. Didn't think I'd need help, he muttered. Valara knelt beside him. This isn't about strength. It's about choices. You made the right one. James looked at her. You didn't come to laugh at me. She gave a small smile. Not this time. He pointed at the gap ahead. No way I can make that. Valara stood and extended a hand. Then trust me. James looked at her for a second. Then, slowly, he reached out and took her hand. Their fingers locked. She pulled him up, held on tight, and said, Jump when I jump. Match my movement. 1, 2, 3. They leapt, together. The wind pushed hard, but Valara twisted in the air and pulled James forward mid-jump. They landed on the stone with a thud, rolling to safety. Breathless, James laughed. That was insane. Valara didn't laugh. She was still holding his hand, and for a moment, she didn't let go. Then she turned away, clearing her throat. Don't get used to that. At the top of the sky path, they reached the shining peak. A small stone floated above a glowing pedestal. Valara stepped back. Go on. Touch it. Complete the trial. James placed his hand on the stone. The air shimmered. The wind calmed. A warm light spread across the sky. Below, the tribe cheered. The trial was complete. That night, the tribe celebrated again. Songs and stories filled the air. But James didn't sit with them. He sat at the edge of the camp watching the stars. Valara approached, her face softer than before. You did well today, she said. You mean we did? He replied. She shook her head. You asked for help. That takes more strength than climbing alone. He looked at her. You didn't have to come. She stared into the firelight and said quietly, I did. I just didn't know why. Until now. The fourth trial. The bond of blood. The fire crackled low that night. No music. No laughter. The tribe was silent. Even the jungle beasts stayed quiet, because the fourth trial was sacred, and dangerous in a way no one joked about. It wasn't just a test of strength. It was a test of connection. At dawn, James stood by the ritual stone, confused. So, what's this one about? He asked. Valara didn't answer right away. She looked different, more serious than ever. She wore no armor, only a simple wrap over her chest and shoulders. Her eyes were sharp, but there was something deeper in them now, something softer, something hidden. The elder stepped forward. This trial is known as the bond of blood, the elder said. Two souls must face a wild force as one. If they move as two, they will fall. If they move as one, they may survive. James blinked. Wait, two? The elder nodded. This is the only trial that cannot be done alone. Valara stepped beside him. Her voice was low. That means you and me, human. James looked at her. You're doing a trial? With me? She didn't smile. Try not to die. I hate wasting my time. They were taken to a circular pit deep in the jungle. Vines hung overhead. The earth was red with dried blood. Stone walls rose around them like a coliseum. Valara pulled out two short blades and tossed one to James. Just in case. James caught it. What exactly are we fighting? A loud metal gate creaked open, and then they heard it. A deep rumble. From the shadows, a massive creature stepped forward. 10 feet tall, skin like rock, eyes burning orange, 4 arms, 2 jaws. Its breath melted the grass beneath it. The trial beast, Valara said calmly, born from the mountains, used only in final tests. James's mouth went dry. Oh great, so don't die? Valara's grip tightened. Stay close. Don't move without me. The creature roared and charged. James barely dodged the first. Strike. The beast slammed the ground, sending dust flying into the air. Valara moved like lightning, slicing one arm, jumping back. Left, she shouted. James rolled left. The creature swung again but missed him by inches. They moved again, almost perfectly in sync. James didn't think, he just watched her feet, her eyes, her rhythm. It was like a dance, only the music was growls and crashing rocks. Valara slashed its leg. James stabbed low near its ankle. The beast roared again, but it didn't fall. It got faster, angrier, more dangerous. The ground cracked. A stone wall crumbled nearby. James slipped. His foot caught on a root. The beast raised its huge arm to crush him. James! Valara jumped. She tackled him, rolling them both out of the way. The beast's fist slammed into the earth, shaking the whole pit. Valara landed on top of him, her hair falling over his face. For a second, everything went quiet. He looked up at her, she looked down at him. They didn't speak. Their hearts did. Then, together, they stood. No more talking, no more guessing. They moved as one. Valara distracted the beast high. James went low. They cut, rolled, climbed, struck. They used the walls, the vines, the shadows. Each time Valara moved, James followed. Each time James dodged, Valara covered him. Until finally, Valara climbed the beast's back, slicing its neck. James threw his blade upward. She caught it mid-air and drove it into the skull. The creature collapsed, shaking the ground. Dead. Silence. Then cheers. Echoes. The tribe roared above the pit. James leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "You okay?" he asked between breaths. Valara nodded, wiping blood from her arm. "You didn't embarrass me, that's enough." He smiled. "High praise." They climbed out together. The elder waited with a small silver bowl. Valara took it first. She sliced a small cut on her palm. The blood dripped into the bowl. She handed the blade to James. He hesitated, then made the cut. His blood joined hers. The elder lifted the bowl and poured it into the sacred flame. The fire turned blue. The bond of blood was sealed. That night, Valara sat alone by the lake. The moon reflected in the water like a second world. James walked over and sat beside her. No words, just silence. Finally, she spoke. "You're not like the others." He looked at her. "You mean humans?" She shook her head. "No, I mean, you're not like the others I pushed away." He stared at the water. "I didn't come here to fight or win you, I just didn't want to be a mistake." She looked at him, eyes soft. "You weren't." The final trial, the truth. The sun rose slowly over the jungle, turning the sky gold. But this morning there was no trial ground, no weapons, no beast, no crowd cheering. Because the last trial was not a fight. It was a choice, and only the heart could pass it. James stood in the center of the sacred grove. Tall trees surrounded him like silent watchers. Light fell through the leaves in thin beams. The ground was soft with glowing moss. Valara stood across from him. No armor, no blades. Just a single, ceremonial cloth wrapped across her shoulder, the symbol of the final trial. The elder stepped between them, holding a folded cloth and a small ceremonial knife. He looked at both of them, then said in a deep voice, "This is the trial of truth. The final bond can only form when both hearts speak freely." James swallowed. He had faced monsters, illusions, and death, but now his chest felt tight. For the first time, this was real. If she chose to cut the bond today, it would be over. No more trials. No more bond. No more her. Valara stepped forward. The elder handed her the knife and the white cloth called the veil of decision. The rule was simple. Cut his palm and say, "Not my mate." The bond would break. The tribe would honor her choice. James would leave, free, or cut her own palm and say, "He is mine." The bond would seal forever. She looked at the knife for a long time. Then she looked at James. He didn't speak. He didn't beg. He only looked at her, with eyes that were calm, steady, and full of something she hadn't expected when this began. Hope. Valara raised the blade. The crowd held its breath. She stepped toward James, slowly. He stood still, waiting. But at the last step, she stopped. The blade trembled in her hand, and then she turned the knife around. She pressed it to her own palm. A red line opened. Blood fell on the veil. "I tried to hate you," she said softly. "I tried to break you. I gave you death. I gave you pain." She looked up. "And each time, you gave me understanding, patience, life." The crowd gasped. The elder's eyes widened. Valara stepped closer, lifted the blood-stained cloth and wrapped it around James's hand. "He is mine." Silence. Then the grove lit up. The trees shimmered blue and flowers bloomed from the ground. A warm wind swept through the leaves. It was said the ancestors would bless a bond not just by law, but by spirit. And this time, they did. The tribe dropped to one knee. Even the warriors bowed. James blinked. So, this means I passed? Valara chuckled quietly. You passed when you caught the arrow. The trials were for me. He tilted his head. You? She nodded. To see if I could let someone in. To see if I could fall. James took her hand gently. And did you? Valara smiled, truly smiled for the first time. I didn't fall, she said. I leapt. Later that night the celebration returned. Fires burned bright. The tribe sang songs of the trials. Children danced with ember wolf cubs. Warriors shared drinks and stories of the human who changed everything. But James and Valara didn't sit in the middle of it. They stood at the edge, watching the stars. She leaned against him, quiet. I never thought it would be you, she whispered. James looked at her. I never thought it would be anyone. She nodded. But now that it is, I'm glad it was you. Far above, the stars shifted, and somewhere in the shadows of the galaxy, ancient eyes watched with interest. Because the warrior, princess, and the human explorer had just rewritten a tradition older than time itself, not with power, not with war, but with truth. The end.